Page 3, English. To the founder, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the one gone beyond, the foe destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Sugata, knower of the world, supreme guide of human beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and human beings, to you, the completely and fully awakened one, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. When, the supreme among humans, you were born on this earth, you paced out 7 strides, then said, I am supreme in this world. To you who are wise then, I prostrate. With pure bodies, form supremely pure, wisdom ocean like a golden mountain, fame that blazes in the 3 worlds, winner of the best, Lord, to you I prostrate. With a supreme size, face like the spotless moon, color like gold, to you I prostrate. You are immaculate, 3 worlds are not, incomparably wise one, to you I prostrate. The Savior having great compassion, the Founder having all understanding, the field of merit with qualities like a vast ocean, to you the one gone to thusness I prostrate. The purity which makes one free from attachment, the virtue which frees one from the lower realms, the one path, the sublime pure reality, to that Dharma which pacifies I prostrate. Those who are liberated and who also show the path to liberation, the holy field qualified with realizations, who are devoted to the moral precepts, to you, the sublime community intending virtue, I prostrate. Do not commit any non-virtuous actions, perform only perfect virtuous actions, subdue your mind thoroughly. This is the teaching of the Buddha. A star, a mirage, a flame of a lamp, an illusion, a drop of dew, or a bubble, a dream, a flash of lightning, a cloud, see conditioned things as such. Through these merits may sentient beings attain the rank of all-seeing, subdue the foe of faults, and be delivered from samsara's ocean. Return public. The Heart Sutra in Tibetan, page 4.
Papa Gujo Suna Cha Zelo Dige Dage Dega Dije Na Chunde De Yabu Da Jago Kungo Rila Gino Kinde Chebo Da Chaju Sende Kinde Chebo Da Tawa Jidu Shude Diye Se Chunde De Samo Nawa Chicha Veche Jena Rake Tinge Nyumbar Shuzo Yang Diye Se Chanju Semba Semba Chebo Papa Chile Se Wanju Shira Je Paru Tu Chebo Anju Samba Samba Jimbo Baba Jene Zewanju Gi Sedan Demba Shari Dade Bola Tige Jemezu Shari Pu Rigi Bon Rigi Kala La Shara Gi Parudu Chimba Samo Cheba Cheba Deba De Titra Namba Tawa Shade Pombo Mawa Teta Rashigi Domba Namba Tala Jesu Tawo Su Domba Wo Domba Ye Suzu Sule Domba Ni Shema Domba Nide Yansu Shema Yin Deshen Orvana Dujedan Nambra Sheba Nandomba O Sharibu Dela Chudan Je Domba Nide Sini Mepa Makeba Magaba Chimame Chimada Chewa Chewa Kawa Meba O Sharibu Dela Domba Nila Sume Swame Dushime Dujedan Nambra Sheba Mime Nawame Name Cheme Lume Yime Sume Dame Chime Rome Jame Chume Vije Kame Bane Ige Nambra Shebe Kanje Batu Yamedo Mariba Me Mariba Seba Me Kashi Sebe Batu Yamedo Deshindo Dunga Wada Kunjungwa Lame Yeshime Toba Me Mato Bayam Medo Sheribu Tedawana Chanju Semba Na Toba Mebe Chir Sherabi Barudo Jembala Tenji Nede Semla Jiba Meji Traba Mede Shinji Lole Chindo Nyangele Debe Tarar Chindo Turundo Namba Jube Sake Damji Sherake Barudo Jembala Tene Lana Yandaba Zobe Janju Dumur Zoba San Yesu Tawena Sherake Barudo Jembe Nga Riba Jembe Nga Lana Mebe Nga Minyabala Nyambe Nga Dunga Namje Rabdu Shiva Jebe Nga Mizumena Demba Sheba Sheraje Barudo Jembe Nga Meba Tiyata Kade Para Sanga Bodhisattva Sharibu Janju Zamba Zamba Jembo Teta Shiraje Barudo Jembo Samola Labar Jamu Tene Chumdinde Tinge Zintele Shinde Janju Zamba Zamba Jembo Baba Shiris Onju Lexo Shetawa Chini Tete Shinde Yedemba Shindo Shiraje Barudo Jembo Samola Chebur Chade Jembo Jesu Yira Montende Dige Jeka Zen Sedan Demba Shere Dembo Janju Zamba Zamba Jembo Baba Shiris Onju Tamje Dembe Kor Adam Nida Lama Yena Teza Jebe Jine Yira De Junde De Jumala
Page 11. Thus have I heard, once the Blessed One was dwelling in Rajagriha on Vulture's Beach, together with a great assembly of monks and bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One was totally absorbed in the concentration that examines all phenomena called profound illumination. And at the same time, the noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, was engaged in the profound practice of the wisdom gone beyond, analyzing the five aggregates by nature empty. Then, through the inspiration of Buddha, the Venerable Shariputra spoke to the noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, saying, how should those of good family learn who wish to follow the profound practice of the wisdom gone beyond? Thus he spoke, and the noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, the Venerable Shariputra, saying, O Shariputra, whatever son or daughter of good family wishes to follow the profound practice of the wisdom gone beyond should look at it like this, analyzing the five aggregates by nature empty. Form is empty, emptiness is form. Emptiness is no other than form. Form is no other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, recognition, karmic formations, and consciousness are all empty. Therefore, Shariputra, all phenomena are empty without characteristics. They are unborn and unceasing. They are neither impure nor free from impurity. They neither decrease nor increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no recognition, no karmic formation, no consciousness. There is no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind. Spheres of the eyes up to no spheres of the mind. There are none of these, all the way up to the sphere of mental consciousness. There is no ignorance, nor is there destruction of ignorance. There are none of these, all the way up to there is no old age and death, nor is there destruction of old age and death. Thus there is no suffering, no cause of suffering, no cessation of suffering, and no path. There is no wisdom, no attainment, and no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, because there is no attainment, all Bodhisattvas hold to the wisdom gone beyond. And because there is no obscurity of mind, they have no fear. Passing utterly beyond falsity, they reach beyond the bounds of sorrow. All the Buddhas who dwell in the three times, by relying on the wisdom gone beyond, fully and clearly awakened to unsurpassed, most perfect and complete enlightenment. Therefore, the mantra of the wisdom gone beyond, the mantra of great insight, the unequaled and unsurpassed mantra, the mantra that calms all suffering should be known as the truth, for there is no deception. The mantra of the wisdom gone beyond is declared. Bodhisattva Mahasattva should learn the profound wisdom gone beyond. Then the Blessed One arose from that concentration and praised the noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, saying, very good, son of good family. It is exactly like that. The profound wisdom gone beyond should be practiced exactly as you have said, and then the Tathagatas will rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, the Venerable Shariputra, the noble Avalokiteshvara, the whole gathering in the world with its gods, men, anti-gods, and spirits, their hearts full of joy, praise the words of the Blessed One. So ends the noble discourse on the essence of the wisdom gone beyond.
Sanju semju kola ta lobjon shiyoros jase shiwala ge zebe ta junju chimbo sange ta sanju semju kola ani ta kola tebi kola kuba do sanju semju ta kola tu shiyo ti kola ta ko na gi are so.
We are training in the mind of bodhicitta. We are studying bodhicitta, and we are basing our studies on the present text composed by the illustrious Shantideva, the way of the Bodhisattva. From beginning to end, the way of the Bodhisattva is a text concerned with bodhicitta. In the essence of training, the amrita or nectar of the oral instructions is a transmission through Serlingpa. And that transmission began with the Buddha himself and was passed to Manjushri and on to Asanga and on again to Shantideva. All of this is the nectar transmission of Serlingpa.
아니 디네단 간다 명아님 거데 실행벌이 규바 있어. 아니 님 도지님은 조신식사 장주 셈승이 규바이나 아니 간대지 열에서나 아니 배드 그렇잖아. 도지님은 조신식 도지스를 도지 플랑하고 도지 플랑디 간대지 열에서 도지 플랑디 고 자교이네라 가리는 고 자시이네 가리는 양고를 무진한 자치셔레스 무지신의 자치와 찌기로 왔어. 대나 신체 도지제 니마스도 니메기 아니 니마 프랑도 니메 긴고도 니메 왜 간다고 가르치고 쓰는 몽바세와 지금 몽바파 메모스와 몽바세와 지금 했어. 어디다 계실 때만 다시 빼이지 아니 전신스는 전신들이 맹이 전신지가 있는 맹이 동보지 전신지가 있는 맹이 동보들이 아니 제보다 동보다 로마도 가는 맹이 자신 알래 그 내세와 지금 왔어. 대나신 다 자주 셈승이 아니 가 자주 셈뭐 이내다 자주 셈이 심바 이내다 아니 자주 셈이 자시 가르인 바 있나야 아니 말아서 있다 동행이 유 세바지는 동행에서 파츠 매버 점을 치그레스 어디 숨이 어디서
And this nectar-like transmission of Sir Lingpa is a transmission passing through Maitreya and onto a Sangha as well. Now, bodhicitta is metaphorically likened to the diamond sunlight medicinal tree. It is diamond-like in that of all gems and jewels, the diamond is indestructible and most precious. And of light, all the forms of light, sunlight is clarifying and illuminating. And in a medicinal plant, when the root is of medicinal value and the stalk and the trunk and the branches and the leaves are all of medicinal value, then that entire medicinal plant is a medicinal plant. In bodhicitta, whatever aspect, whatever part, whatever is taken from bodhicitta, it is beneficial and it eliminates the very cause of suffering.
근데 이리도 뭐다 자주 쓰는 러브이네 아니 깽에 자주 러브 주르와 생에게 답에 냐면이 여러서 로종세 냐면 용거 아니 깽에 자주 러브 주와 생 간데서 여러서나 아니 다 간다르 파게 단단 하나도 딱 주주님마 주주 두자 미 지부님마 세님마 두님마 최님마 세님마 같이기로 와 어예 님마가 규절라 땅아도 아니 수수기 직 동해들을 최제 개인들을 두고 하다 아니 바게라니 사베 디고들 바르지 세고이나 아주 규절이 당기 말에 세 두고 말했어 딱 탑시 가리어서는 아니 개인 가르쳐와 있는 되게 강한 전유 셈 범네 아니 이 람도 교네 꼭 개인 맞아 저도 교로해야 돼 아니 전유 셈 미바디게 전들이 제가 있나 아니 개인 람도 교와 스타디페 판도 첨부 아니 수술에 달간다 동에 바 내가 동에 좀바 제하다 내가 두어 제가 내하고 있는데 되게 제하가 터다는 개인 람도 교와 개인 람주기 로장 장주선을 로장한테 어떻게 해서 그러지
Through the practice of bodhicitta, counterproductive conditions may be transformed into the path. So during training, what does that entail? At this time, it is a time of decline. It is an unfortunate period of declining lifespan, of decline in the Dharma, and during such a period, unsupportive conditions, whatever non-virtue or whatever misdeeds there are that must be removed, there isn't sufficient time to deal with them all. One isn't able to eliminate those misdeeds. But bodhicitta allows for the transformation of poor conditions into good conditions. It allows for the thorough removal and eradication of suffering and the establishment of lasting satisfaction and happiness. And this may be done effortlessly through bodhicitta, and this is the value of training in bodhicitta.
어, 진짜 쟁이다. 간다. 또 산지 좀 되는데 코랑게 통보 전주 통보 섬도 투기하게 아니 루규 준비 담보 아니 예외 때문에 예외 신도 계속 되는데 아니 코랑게 루규 좀도 시에 있는 코랑 안녕할 때는 게 예외 때는 게도 아니 코랑게 로봇이 때 코랑이 가서 신도 태고 아니 신도 태도 좀 신도의 로봇이 교탄 테마 투네 아니 콜 예외 레지도 콜 지우지 내가 당한다는 그런 생각이 인지통 아직도 그거까지 돼. 콜 테마죠 그렇지. 내 신도 내 챙기 있으라고 아니 예외 레지도 농만에 아니 뭐 다들 막 교지도 좀 감사되게 콜 그런 게 도와주지 총재는 레디 세는 그런 게 인지게 뭐 되네서는 그런 예외 내보다 세는 아니 그 예외는 표현이 아니 바유를 오 되게 다 누구 당부도 들려서
So how is it that bodhicitta has this transmutative power, is able to transmute bad conditions into supportive conditions? There's a story from the life of the Buddha Shakyamuni, from his stories of his trainings as a bodhisattva. When the Buddha was a bodhisattva, when he first gave rise to the mind of enlightenment, gave rise to bodhicitta, he had taken rebirth as a hell being. And he was in the hell realm. And he was in the hell realm with another, dragging a chariot. And the keepers of the hell realm were, in a punishing way, driving them to pull the chariot. And his friend, yoked beside him, grew tired and wasn't able to pull anymore. And the charioteers punished him for that. And seeing that, the Buddha Shakyamuni at this time, not yet a Buddha, developed great compassion for his companion who was no longer able to pull, and said to the charioteers, "Do not have him pull anymore, I'll pull instead." And they became, the charioteers, the cruel charioteers became very angry. But it was this process where he developed compassion for his companion, and thereby, when he did pass on again from the hell realm, through the virtue of that compassion and the karma created, he was reborn in the heavenly realm.
Oh yeah, that masjidana wal ma pen chanju sen pen shi yunguru wa ta kana na do bizena tes susul tik lule naza to ta sem ma ji ba chubi lamsan pe sunan chi yu ya maras pe kanda didul le yungdu jamba ani susu ki pe ta dig le ti susu pa sugu ma de ro shuma yina ani dig ne naza til te ne ani dig ne shen nani kazu yina dig tawa sho som de manon jaba yina 아니 semba sambu di manon de chagu chajusin manon de rugu yores ani le mango de dagi yores toda ta kandar suzuki mazuki tanda marang do esi ne na da yuan zo be shuji dugu imba do jaro di samlu di mazo jebu jawores kaza chaju semba zo manon jebu ani ne na da karu yena mi lidin de la na sho ani be kangen kazu ne mi lidin la nya sho manon jebu yores mas.
Later on, we will look at the benefits of bodhicitta. They're described elsewhere as well. But if we apply this idea to our present life and think of those times when we're sick or feeling unwell, our tendency is to grow irritable and impatient with that. And there's an alternative outlook one can have that more resembles the outlook of a bodhisattva, and that is, at such a time when one is unwell, when one is sick, to view that as a moment when negative misdeeds, karma from the past, are undergoing purification. And so at that time, instead, one may, with the aspiration, the compassionate aspiration, like a bodhisattva's compassionate aspiration, aspire to have all those misdeeds and negativities from the past ripen fully on the present human body. And so instead of viewing any discomfort and hardship one encounters as some sort of unfair punishment, instead it may be viewed as an opportunity for eliminating the karma of misdeeds. And so this is the practice of a bodhisattva. Any illness, any discomfort, may it actually ripen on this present human body.
오예, 세상 다 삼로 땅도 삼바 가르치고 그러는데 미때는 냐와 있나? 아니, 죄다 망고 요랬어. 때는다 죄다 다 수수기 배 냐와도 지지기 배 롱업 주주 된데 냥고에 동해들이 미때는 냐와 있는 니마치기를 다 둬야. 아니, 이다를 계획 동해기 배 롱은 이슈 숨주 된데 세 말하고 또버 대고야 된데 동해 있나야? 아니, 미때는 냐와 있는 아니 베니만 주주나로 다 타바셔야. 아니 뒤엔다 장주고 쌤 공부하다 뒤에 강의 토하면 되는데 여봐 인도 아니 미때는 나와도 쉬우지기 때문에 이거 친구 소소 동네 친구 타고 여기 열었어. 근데 제발 친구 여자 아니 너는 여기 열었어.
The view one may have of this potential for the present human body to ripen negative misdeeds and thereby purify those misdeeds may be viewed in this way. In the hell realms, a hell being will have to suffer 50, 60 years of agonies, all because of the misdeeds that on a human body would be purified within one day. Or a preta being will be hungry for 20 or 30 years, experience that pain and hunger for 20, 30 years. The same negativity will ripen in the span of 1 hour in the present human body. And so the conditions, when one has a human embodiment, the conditions present for that individual are excellent, bodhicitta, as well as other conditions. And so negativities may be purified on the basis of a human embodiment. And this makes for a significant difference between this basis of a human body and other bases in other realms. And so for this reason, there is this sort of aspirational prayer made by bodhisattvas.
아니 장주선을 로는 제대 개침보제는 또 표현 침보 여보다 개침보 이모델이 란데 수수도 못처럼 배랍 침보 여래서.
And so it is then that the training in bodhicitta is necessary and crucial, extraordinarily important, both for self and for others. The benefits are tremendous, both for self and for others. And therefore, when one practices bodhicitta, the blessings are untold.
아니 강가 그런 자주 쓰는 심바생이 돈에 지투가 있나 아니 랑게 최디 아니 최소 누구래 대화집도 최소 누구래 아니 말아도 니만 미지디 돌아도 말 로디 돌아도 말 니마디 돌아도 말 제가 니마 드린 돌아만로 했는 로디 돌아만로 미지디 돌아만로 어디 되게 개매시 뭐 여러 손이지.
So then the way of the Bodhisattva concerned with bodhicitta, when we resume, picking up where we left off, we will be attending to the benefits and the profits that come from meditation on the mind of enlightenment. When the mind of enlightenment is conjoined with any activity, whether it's the activity of listening to the Dharma, or providing instruction in the Dharma, or assisting others, when that activity is conjoined with the Dharma, it transforms that activity into truly authentic Dharma. It transforms it into the Mahayana Dharma. And when we, day by day, month by month, year by year, conjoin all that we do with the mind of enlightenment, that makes for an entire life of the utmost value. When one day is valuable, days amount to years, and a year is valuable, years amount to decades. When decades are of value, then an entire lifetime becomes of value.
간다 교화도 그랬지. 명 개발진 도구를 된 개발진 도구를 해서 엑스디가 하는 것도 대시자도 여러 손이지.
Then it is this priming of the mind through bodhicitta, through the right intention, that we use to precede, that we use as we proceed into the way of the Bodhisattva, the text itself. Where did we leave off? We left off with a description of what happens when when bodhicitta arises in the mind. And what happens is one achieves an extraordinary name, and one achieves an extraordinary purpose. One is transformed. One's name and one's purpose is transformed.
Oh, yeah, that's how you send the Korangi. The zendo without any subject or near or you remember some the Juba Sims. No simple. To send me or us. And the Karikeva Yina Yang, and call a Karichavresna, and call Chanju Samba, Ming the Dagres, call a Chanju Sambas, meeting Ming Karda for Chanju Sambas, and it takes in bars. And the Lamshuji Kansas, Ming the Dagres, for Ming the Chavachi Chasa res. And that means the Tata the man Karichavas, Polis, Tadado, Sanjay says, Sanjay Pugus in a good open on the Kiwi Pugul Kevina and Kiwi Pugula. Then I think you was in Pobble Pugul Kevina and Pobble Pugus. Then I think that and you simply can't do and Polis Sanjay says, I mean the Tata has once.
Bodhicitta is of two kinds. There are these two sorts of bodhicitta, right? There is aspirational bodhicitta and engaged bodhicitta. These two. Whichever one develops, with the development of that mind of enlightenment, one achieves a new name, the name of the heir of the Sugatas, the heir of the Buddha, the child of the Buddhas. One becomes a Mahayanist. One becomes one who has entered the path. This distinguishes a person. When one is distinguished in this way, they are given this name, an heir or a child of a king. When a child is born to a king, then a prince or a princess they are. And when someone is born to a president, that's the son of a president. So it's this sort of illustrious name.
Oh, yeah, that means the Tata. That didn't turn Karichavas Toguris, that didn't put Chanju send Bula Keva, put Chanju Samba Chava, to do some of that Chanju send my Kondo Karichavas and put Rangi turn the Zoo, Rangi turn Mount Dugura, Pashi Dugura. That Chanju send kids at the Kogi, Chawa the Karichavas, and she did she had to go to us, she did so catch Mumaiba, she catch Moiba, the Shen Moiba, the Summer Shaz, and she. And the Chow Karichin Shanna Pembe Chawachi race. And for Karichavas, the Tapo Tada Mita, a send bed. On the Bagashara Bukula Kaziva, Tada Mita, Hama, that is such a bit near as oh, the Zukangagi, and the charge as a you to Chavas. Malupe, Kope, that Mita must not tell a dancer charge as a Nimakuza, you the Chagi or Esmos.
And then what is the exceptional purpose one has achieved with the generation of bodhicitta? One has achieved the purpose of a bodhisattva. Before the generation of bodhicitta, one will have been solely concerned with one's own well-being and nothing else, exclusively concerned and preoccupied with oneself at the expense of others. Following the arising of bodhicitta, what does one do? What are one's new actions? One becomes concerned solely with the well-being of others, strives solely for the well-being of others. They are able to put aside their own preoccupation with self and strive for the benefit of others. And with that generation of bodhicitta and transformation, there are heavenly beings and there are human beings. And as it says in the Heart Sutra, the Venerable Shariputra, the Noble Avalokiteshvara, the whole gathering in the world with its gods, men, anti-gods, and spirits, all sorts of individuals, all these individuals find the Bodhisattva praiseworthy, worthy of veneration, worth celebrating and venerating. That is what what happens when one generates bodhicitta.
어떠지? 하나다 거기 샘 진이디 장주 초도 샘 진이디 아니 샘제 교우 냐바 이내다 이다바 이내다 그때 교우 이내다 가리네 고주로 장주 샘디 깨사도 않고 대가지기 때 자친 거다. 강달하게 진리게 차지의 유수교와 주법의 유수교와 대차사를 해서
Now, whatever the basis, whether it be the basis of the being of a in the hell realm, the basis of a preta being, whatever the physical basis of the individual, hell being, preta being, whatever it may be, when that individual on that basis generates bodhicitta, then that individual has become deserving of veneration, deserving of homage, deserving of praise of the highest kind.
어떠지? 나 니네 이 도스 장주 가지고 민체버진 토백이 칠 가지고 쉬자이 봐. 자와디 가지고 조사를 장주 쓰는 깨지지주는 코에 쫄아 담바 년단 대신는지 세지 줘봐 이 제대 화면 줘봐 찾아서 가지고 지기 가지고 조사를 와. 다 드린디 어디네 다 가르치고 그래서 나 장주고 셈디 아니 다 표현이 빼고는 마시게를 빼 truju고 아니 도스마를 빼를 자와를 잘네 안도 송거에서
So here we have described the achievement of an extraordinary purpose. This is the meaning of the 9th verse. Should bodhicitta, and now we're on page 32 in this text, verse 9. Should bodhicitta come to birth in those who suffer, chained in prisons of samsara, in that instant they are called the children of the blissful one, revered by all the world, by gods and humankind. Now what follows, beginning in verse 10, will be a series of metaphors, and we will address each metaphor one after the next. What follows are 6 metaphors. They are a metaphor illustrating the transformation of the lowly into the loftiest. The metaphor illustrating the great difficulty and the great value of bodhicitta. The metaphor describing the ever-increasing and inexhaustible fruits of bodhicitta. The metaphor describing the great protection and refuge from great fear provided by bodhicitta. And 6th, the metaphor illustrating how great misdeeds are effortlessly vanquished by bodhicitta.
장주 샘지차와 라덴 송 스타디기 탄다 도도도 가르는 멤버 초도 주에 뺏을 땡기거래 유 배간다 친주지기 대부 줘야 매봐 대부 배 전부 중국 유바데 아니 배송네 우리가 장주 샘 배전 중주 송구열에 손을.
The first metaphor is found in the 10th verse. For like the supreme substance of the alchemists, it takes our impure flesh and makes of it the body of a Buddha, jewel beyond all price. Such is bodhicitta. Let us grasp it firmly. This is an illustration a metaphorical illustration of the way in which bodhicitta transforms that which is lowly into something exceptionally lofty. From a very small cause, a seemingly trivial cause, the most extraordinary, inexhaustible ripening of results emerges. And so it is, this describes how from a small, seemingly small cause, inexhaustible results come about.
거기 셀도 줄여야게 아니 제직 아니 제유유 춘주지게 아니 베스 짜도 짜상 짜도들 유망보 아니 셀을 규가 되게 따뜻한 규여를 아니 베드 디샤를 해서.
And the metaphor here is of a chemical that the application of only a little bit of a chemical transmutes ordinary metal into valuable gold. So it is the transmutation, chemical transmutation brought on by only the smallest application of a chemical.
도지 세상다 배 자, 세르데 아니 하장게다 배 내고 첨부 공 첨부 배 고모로 와서 아니 자 배버로 와서 다 아니 자상 망보 텐데 셀 줄어이나 아니 신이 동에 망보 세와 치투야다 신이 되고 공화 망보 치투로 와서 배들을 자네 아니 되나지다 나란족을 단다지 나란 수술낸 샤베 미ዛ베 류다 미자오 배 망보 미자오 숨주송이서 장가지야 열다스다 되게 랑베기 미자모게 제일 프로베기 아니 류디 아니 가르치게스나 아니 자주고 셈 류디 유베 강사들의 깨봐이나 아니 류디 아니 계획이 꾸승이 자천부 산지기 꾸 류디 꾸승이 자천부 차야 그들이 열을 주주고 열었어 꾸디 배미자모 꾸디 아니 자천부 계획 꾸세 차도 열었어.
Now, gold is valuable. It's a precious metal, and it's rare. And ordinary, less valuable metals, when they are made into coins, they're more plentiful. They're not so rare and not so valuable. If one is able to transmute commonplace metal coins into exceptionally rare gold coins, then with that wealth, with that newly made wealth, one can bring about satisfaction for oneself and great satisfaction for others from the new wealth made in that way. And so, in a similar way, from the basis of an ordinary impure body that we have, and there are descriptions of the body's impurities being 32, from this ordinary impure body, with the transformation of the mind, it is as though this impure body has become the sacred body, the extraordinary body of the Buddha. And it is by the virtue of the transformative power of the mind that the possessor of that mind, first an ordinary impure body, becomes like the body of the Buddha.
되게 자체모 류디 아니 계획 구체도 송배찬 간단지 다 산지 구성도 이게 랑기 셈비 교된 산지 투도 교하다 류교된 꾸교하다 되게 치투야도 베르지 자체모게 아니 장주 셈비 아니 가두이네 마땅와 베 장주 셈을 베 공부체 냥도네 퇴바 당부 퇴바체 삼바체
In this way, the body is transformed. With the transformation of the mind through the generation of bodhicitta, the body is transformed, the speech is transformed, the mind is transformed. All of these are transformed, and all becomes precious by virtue of the extraordinarily precious mind of bodhicitta. And once this has happened, then bodhicitta, that transformative mind, should never be allowed to be lost. It should always held fast. It should always be protected.
Oh yeah, this one. Oh, this is that today you don't know sick today pay. Let how we turn any bit today rangi pe dunge tamche pa shamba se lu mi sama to pe mi sama lu mi sama to pa ne juni jewe ku juru tu ya today niba yebe chanju ku sem de la ane rangi ta today niba yebe thome ko ne ane rangi te la lobby na ane rangi pa kanda sick dunge to new to shitu a cheva da ane rangi dewa drugu na ya dewa tamje thobe ya gita and
so with bodhicitta that is able to transform the impure body into the pure and sacred body of the Buddha, this transformative mind, when one recognizes that it is transformative, when one recognizes its potential, and then one commits oneself to training in bodhicitta, then one has what is required to quickly and effortlessly dispel all sufferings and bring about complete, thoroughgoing satisfaction.
Oh yeah, that did the kung never but kung and some did the Quran, Dombuko with Donna, Sung your lesson, Dombuko with Donna, which you said, and it says, Union and Jason Tono Soba, and it said to you again, Menada, and the some did the Quran, Sung your lessons.
Now this claim is not without scriptural support. The support for it comes from the Flower Array Sutra. And in the Flower Array Sutra it says that the mind of enlightenment is of transmutative power. It transmutes ordinary as though it transmutes ordinary metals into gold.
Oh yeah, but the day any tikta penamana nangbe na chawa beauty colors na gobulu na yores gobulu para ani nale kembu keba ani kembu kide ani goba ta ya ye ta ya ani tide sam jagal mugi te ra semje mugi jagal ne ani semje sasa ton so ba juwa chene ani tigi tinji chene ani semje lumbo para mugi kyoba chewata 아니 나는데 공부를 쉽게 제가 공부 따뜻한데 공부 공부를 좀 말을 공부 그리고 공 비어만다 공부를 좀 해야 공부를 좀 나는데 공부가 때 차상 소유게 늦어버렸나 아니 뒤마저 따라 도시된 게 최대한 게 쉽게 제가 늦어버려 공부를 좀 나와 제가 나야 뒤에도 가서 그런 게 짜서 셀폰 책에 미거디 장 아니 되게 나 이렇게 빼먹고 열어서
Now, the alchemical training in alchemy is something that was a focus of Nagarjuna, the abbot of Nalanda, the great Nagarjuna. And at the time when he was abbot of Nalanda, there was great famine, and he was able to protect and nourish others during the famine, and he was able to restore monasteries that required repair, and he was also able to restore the buildings at Bodh Gaya. All of this he was able to do because, in fact, he did train in alchemy relatedly.
따나 린치베 드웬네다 저와 되바는 린지 창주 셈렉 템보 송세도 왔다니 아니 녀바까지 린단치베 빼때메 자와티레 송.
So next follows the metaphor illustrating the great difficulty and the great difficulty of achieving, and then the great value of bodhicitta. This is described in verse 11. Since the boundless wisdom of the only guide of beings perfectly examined and perceived its priceless worth, those who wish to leave this state of wandering should hold well to this precious bodhicitta.
This one? Oh, yeah, today you do that. Tamu never kashi, Rendan Chawas, never Kawas, Chanju send it that. Today, the other Tamu Chanju send Jonga Chevala, Tamu, and Jonga Chevaki, Tenzo Yabu, they never cover, Yuishan never cover, Mochane, and a con never cover, Chanju send it, and it's someone Chimbo, Mipe, round of 6 the day low, never Chanju send, you like Yavata, Chanju send it, the parent Tobalan. Then some water sunam chimbuko is a body, then never gawas worse. That Rindan Chawas, they call Gombo Shuiza and the ring chaws. The Rindan Chawas, they call Turn Chimbo Yimba, Gombo Yimba, and they call a ring chawas, better with the
Now, in this verse, the two pieces here are that bodhicitta is the achievement of or coming to possess bodhicitta is of great difficulty, and it is of great value. The difficulty of achieving or generating bodhicitta, well, first consider the training required. Bodhicitta requires the most exceptional sort of basis. It takes an exceptional basis in order to arise. And in order to achieve such a basis, such a foundation for the generation of bodhicitta, one has to have many causes satisfied. And then when the result comes about, because it requires so much in terms of causes, results are difficult to come by. So what is required for bodhicitta, for the presence of bodhicitta, is considerable merit. In order to generate bodhicitta in one's mind, one has to have considerable merit. And the basis for the generation of bodhicitta, itself difficult to come by, must be present. Now it is valuable. It is valuable because it is so rare. It is so exceptional that it is necessarily uncommon. And that makes for its great value.
아니 수레스나는 딱 산지 좀 되게 냐지레스다 장주고 쌤 뭐만하도 둘을 예배게 아니 산지 좀 되게 딱 산지 좀 되게 딱 자세 장주 쌤바도 아니 어쩌다 도와는 동행이 자들을 바로도 들어버리시게 되면 저의 대변 수도 못한 것도 봐 어떤 디스크로 투를 따니나 그 따니기 딸 거기 대변 수도 잡는 데로 뒤 어디에 대변 도와서 탐지 고객이 동행 자들을 바로도 깨고 지에 대한 산지 좀 되게 이자들 도에 대변 지고 그런 sense 아니 체매로 세대 산지 투기다 켐바디 시고를 근데 남제 체매별로스도 내로 차단 켐배 최는 내로 차단 켐배기 켐바디 예바에다 체매별로 뒤 아니 내가 용서 따보나서 다 선제 도와 다다로 껴버 제기 그래서 껴고도 아니 저배 탑 근데도 바용서 따는데 아니 장주고 쓰는 뒤집고 아니 껴두고 여봐도 세바를 해서
The only guide of beings. It is the Buddha alone who is the guide of beings. Beings submerged in the ocean of samsara. In their effort to travel to the far shore, they require leadership. They require one who can captain the craft to the far shore, lead to the far shore. And so one must recall that the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas do this. They assist sentient beings lost in the waves of samsara, in the great ocean of samsara. They lead sentient beings to the far shore. Just as a boat is captained, the Buddha captains the boat that carries sentient beings to the far shore of the ocean of samsara. And for this reason, the name is given to the Buddha, the only guide of beings. The only guide of beings to perfectly examine and perceive its priceless worth. Perfectly examine and perceive. This is a description of the Buddha's omniscient mind, the quality of the Buddha that is the Buddha's omniscience. The Buddha's omniscience examined reality as it is, and wisdom of reality as it is allowed the Buddha to conclude correctly that bodhicitta and bodhicitta alone is the method for delivering sentient beings to the far shore of the ocean of samsara. The Buddha examined reality to find how sentient beings might be protected, how one could serve them, and found that bodhicitta alone is the means.
Oh, that 장주가 선 되게 아니 제일 가르치기를 했으나 아니 저에게 내가 태워 되어 놈 예스 저에네서 내 송근에 세라서 하나도 저에네디 땅에 송근에 내 송근에 태워 되어 아니 내 송근 동에네 태워 되어 앞에 태워 되네 아니 저번에 코에네 타르도 뭐게 봤으나 코에네 타르바 제바 아니 지금 대화 토버도 대화도 가르토바 지고 유나 양스 아니 탑 초도 주거든 가르스나 아니 이제 정부지 자주고 쌤 디코나레스 이자 자주고 쌤디 아니 때문 송고래서 가도 있는 그 고버 뒤따도 아니 고버 채고래서 송고래서.
Now, what is the function of bodhicitta in for sentient beings? Those who wish to leave this state of wandering should hold well to this precious bodhicitta. This state of wandering is especially wandering in the lower realms. But residence in samsara generally, and all of the suffering that entails, delivering sentient beings from this in order to separate them from the states of wandering, in order to free them, provide liberation. It is, of all methods that might succeed in this, it is only precious bodhicitta that is truly able to. And for that reason, one must hold fast to bodhicitta at all times, should hold well to this precious bodhicitta.
자들의 파 트로고기는 아니 줘야게 트로고를 트들라 때는 파 트로고레스 아니 트들라 때는 파게 되버지는 트로버 제발라 트루 땅에게 제 땅에게 되면이 아니 배 개보 다 고베 간다 트루 땅을 개봐 강가를 껴투고 고기로 어디 나신 아니 로스인제 탐지 아니 고백이 자들 트로버 제발라 아니 파게 트로버 제야게 파게 디 고백이 야돌레 파 트레드 다 삼바다 아니 디레티 간다르바게 좀 투야게 아니 니바다 대지 사단 덴바데 가리였으나 장주쌤 이레스 다 장주쌤 딜라 때네 아니 때 선제는 고백이 동에 야돌레 쪽을 제투그레 아니 대학교에 맞세 아니 배 대변 개박이 바게 선제 가다 투나니 그 미디기디 강에 매베 돈에 파줄을 깨봐 나시 거기 동에기 타다를 들어가체네 아니 고아를 들어가치 투구를 해서.
So in short, the essence of this metaphor is that samsara is ocean-like. There is a far shore to samsara, and just as one travels an ocean by boat, in order to travel easily and safely, one relies on one who captains a ship, one who's skilled in navigation and is able to protect those on board. Likewise, there is a navigation out of cyclic existence, as though it were an ocean and one were navigating across the ocean of samsaric existence. And so it is, what is that guidance and that captain? It is the intention and desire to lead sentient beings to what is like a far shore of an ocean of samsara. And that intention and that desire is had by bodhicitta. And so in that way, bodhicitta is able to deliver to the far shore, deliver sentient beings to the far shore, just as the Buddha himself in an error, in a correct manner, was able to deliver himself or bring himself to the far shore.
What is that? There is never catch a rinchir better. That is somebody, Karasana, Jebu messaging pay best. Oh, that Jebu messaging pay best, and the time we have the Tawad Karasana. Gewashing, choosing Shindu means Jebu Jen several Urani, Chanju Simbi, Joshin Tabarayam, Jebu Chimbe, Messe Power, Guru. So, that the Tawa Digita, Dadi, and Chanju Simbi, Jebudi, and Kaduin, Seba Yomare, Seba American, and Kaduya, Kon Payam, Jebu Zordo at the Sedra, and they never all the better Tanjan Sungi or this one.
Next follows the description of the illustration of bodhicitta as the results of bodhicitta as ever increasing and being inexhaustible. All other virtues, verse 12 now, all other virtues like the plantain tree produce their fruit, but then their force is spent. Alone the marvelous tree of bodhicitta constantly bears fruit and grows unceasingly. The metaphor here illustrates how bodhicitta's fruits, how bodhicitta's results are inexhaustible. They only continue to ever increase, but there is no end to them.
Oh, yes, I think it's a Tambo says all the Jawashin going to career is not a Chanju Simti massive Gawamanguera or to get us.
All other virtues. What are these all other virtues? They are all other actions which occur in the absence of bodhicitta.
Oh, yeah, that Jawashin go to Luigi Gawa, Maji Gawa, Yi Gawa, and Gawamango around to be busy. Chimakibu Yoyagi, Gawa Yore, Hagi, Hami Goban Tovaji, Gawa Yore, and then Timaki Dutch of the topic, Gawa Yorwa, or Gawa Zukanga, Gawa Shin, Kunsi, and Yore, Chanjus must be Gawa.
So there are all sorts of other virtues not conjoined with bodhicitta, virtues of body, speech, and mind, the sorts of virtue that deliver rebirths in human realms, God realms, and even the achievement of the state of arhat, all sorts of virtuous actions, which are, however, not conjoined with bodhicitta.
Oh, yes, that the Gawa, the only back Harnation, choosing Nashi, or choosing things, that don't was your rock. The ordinary race, Harchinana Kogi, Korangi. Marado Moram Javanashi, Gavasawa Nashi, and Jebu Sarji Kegel, and then Jebu the Kogan, Judy, Jebu Sarji Ken, and your Jebu, Niva Kia Mavina, and a choosing Nashi race, Jebu Sarji Mon, there to Mares or this Gores.
All these other virtues are likened to the plantain tree, like the plantain tree. So there's this sort of fruit, this plantain, and virtues accumulated, which only ripen one time, are like a plantain tree, which ripens once, produces fruit once, but only once. There isn't a second time it ripens again with new fruits. Only one cycle of ripening for the plantain.
오야 딱 그대로 시원한 전주 생기 마시베기 개화는 개화다 토쇼로스나다 또 제쇼로 가리어서 맨날 다지는 고만토야 개화저와 팀멤버 다지마 인도다도 나제다지마 오야 다지는 고만토야 개화데 임바이나 양스 아니 그 개화데 산 제마 다지는 고만토그로와 토비 딱고 되고 지사 그 양조 되고 지야 요마르다 티가란 도와서 왔어 뭐 직세로와 다 그냥 아주 개화지마 그는 개화 지마들은 밀려버 쇼 하루 개화 쇼 밀려 개화 쇼 뭐는 이제 개화 사샤이나 네기 개화 지마들 하루 깨서는 거기 되부디 유디 되부 진사와 제대로 그 양준님에게 지행이 맞다 걸 지행이 맞고 되네라는 데가 저도 어디는 개화 심바 강강 수수수게 개화 제조되기 아니 제부르지 아니 그런 매가 살아도 제가 뒤에 아니 추심만 신지 배자는 송열에 송지
Virtuous actions, unconjoined with bodhicitta. Of all these sorts of virtues, the best of these virtues would be the virtue that results in the achievement of arhatship. There's in the Shravakayana the state of arhatship. Now, virtues lead to or cause the achievement of arhatship. So one accumulates the causes for arhatship and then becomes an arhat. So in the becoming of an arhat is the maturation of all the virtues that cause arhatship. With the achievement of arhatship, they all matured. They have all produced. And that's just one time with the one achievement of the state of arhatship. Or again, if one has aspired to virtuous actions so that one might achieve rebirth in a heavenly realm or in a human realm, when that rebirth occurs, then the virtue that caused that rebirth has matured and ripened and is finished. With each virtue that ripens, when unconjoined with bodhicitta, that maturation, the ripening, brings it to a conclusion and an end.
Oh yeah, that's Hanju Sangi Simbe Jawadi, and it Nashi Mares, Jebuchi Jin, and Yanju Chian Meva de Mare Jebudi, and it Kazu Jebuchi Ni Sumshi, Kazu Mangashima, Kazu Mangama Jin to Yak for the Mubadi Yares. It's Betty Garza, Jin on the Pejaprana, Betty Pasan Shin Sanger, Tajidan Jin Singing. Devu Talu, Penetrabu, Talota, Locemata, the Lomanguta, Manguta, any Devu Cher to have the Mount of the Manguyava, or Tinashi Chanju Sing, Devu de Lanis, and Devu Terenci, and Jinguma, Sam, Mutameva. Kazu Jin and the Mount seem to have any did you by your response.
Now, virtues conjoined with bodhicitta aren't like this. They are different. They don't mature once and finish. Instead, they are perennial. They are ever increasing. We speak of wish-granting trees, a sort of tree that might continually produce year after year with more and more fruit. It isn't the sort of plant that produces one time and then we say it won't produce again tomorrow. Instead, it produces again and again, ever increasing.
Oh, yeah, that's Jina, and Jebu Chick from Zimba Maiba Peta, Lotonda, Mamu Jingiro, then I see Chanju Simbi, Jebudi, Chanju Simbi Simbeta, Ma Karkiwa Mamuyo, Lugi on the subject, Kawa Chanju Simba, and Naji on the subject, Kawa Chanju Simba. Each one is subject to watch and do some symbol. What the Zukamaro culture is not considered to any way. Could and Zoya never seen any to Jin 2
Now, like a wish-granting tree that continually produces, which would continually produce for thousands of years, ripening continually, bodhicitta, which may be conjoined with actions of body, speech, and mind, whichever. There are virtuous actions of body conjoined with bodhicitta, of speech conjoined with bodhicitta, of mind conjoined with bodhicitta, all of these in their result, whenever they are ripening, that ripening is inexhaustible and continuous. Now, bodhicitta conjoined virtuous actions described this way as being perennially ever producing, ever maturing, multiplying continually. When we describe virtuous actions conjoined with bodhicitta as ripening in this way continually, perennially, and you ask, what's the difference? What makes the difference? What makes it so like this? When you think about that for a moment, what sort of feeling do you have for why or how this would be? Now, from the first instant of bodhicitta, the first arising of bodhicitta in the mind, from that moment onward, the defining moment of its first arising is the commitment and intention to establish all sentient beings in lasting well-being and happiness. And bodhicitta is the potential and the ability to do just that, and the commitment to do so. And with the first arising of that mind begins the ripening of the result of such a virtuous mind, but the ripening will be endless, as this process of establishing all sentient beings in their well-being is a very long process.
개와디 아니 장주 생기 심바이나 내게 선제기 전에 교배도 삼바삼 집에 아주 거기 개와 제조디 장주 생기 심바도 제바이나 아니 디 개와디 아두이나에 거 마냐마도 저 권권도 패도 그랬어. 아니 제가 딱 알아도 뒤유님에는 냐면시도 잡아 배나다 시에나 칼라 때에 개와이네다 그 때에 제가 시엔 동네에 껴베지는데 가르치도 개와 제샤네 개와디 아니 배 개와 지교디 아니 장중이 생기 심바이나 아니 개와디 가도이나 마 양기 말아 권권도야 마음만 배결 마도 용용도 약간 세드라 이거 말해서
Now, as you study bodhicitta, consider bodhicitta, don't neglect seemingly trivial, small actions of virtue, even the small generosity of giving very little food, but a little food to a hungry person, or clothing to a needy person, that virtue, when it is conjoined, when bodhicitta has been generated and the virtue is conjoined with that bodhicitta, then that virtue will not decline. So during the training, during the practice of bodhicitta, when we're giving to others, giving food and clothing and protection to others, whatever virtue that action is, when it's conjoined with bodhicitta, that virtue cannot decline in any way.
아니 추팅버치기 야조나 룩샤나 야조디 마조바도 추팅버치기 되기다. 추디 나오게도 답지도 어디나 신다 랑게 제베 개와 취지디 아니 자주 쓰는 세마이나 아니 고 가다 자주 쓰는 데 배우 마조바도 코펜자 야 말해서.
So for example, suppose you have a single drop of water and you'd like to keep it and be sure that it is preserved and not lost. Now, how would you do that? There's one method you might use to keep that one drop of water, and not lose it, and that is deposit it in the ocean. For so long as the ocean remains, then that drop of water in the ocean will remain as well. So it is that any virtue that one engages in, conjoined with bodhicitta, will remain until the very benefits of bodhicitta ripen in full.
제가 잔주고 생기 심바생이다. 잔주고 생기 심스도 꼭 한다라니 개와 제셔jö디 아니 배 얘기 개와 집에 투대라 때는 심쟁이 배 되기를 편바쇼 배서 그 한다라 소주기 배 심쟁이 안데 버게다 동해세야라 편바쇼 대고 배 대와도를 편바쇼 섬을 땅에 있나요?
So then when you engage in a virtuous action and then consider the force of that virtuous action and direct the entire force of your virtuous action to establishing all sentient beings in their lasting well-being, I will direct the force of this virtue in that direction. I will direct the force of this virtue to dispelling all suffering for sentient beings. When one directs one's virtues this way, then that action has been conjoined with bodhicitta.
Oh, yes, the Tibacheroa, Tibu Messibe passing the Tibache. I didn't Tibachumbul there, Jumni passing the Tibachumbul, Jumni passing. That is our Tibashindu message, and I am. 빨라때네 지고 첨부 따라 빼지 강라때네 유지ထွ주와 대라 파진는지 찜미대서 어디 되는지 어디 빼 되는지 소멸해서.
Next follows the illustration, the metaphorical illustration of bodhicitta as having the power to protect from the greatest fears. And the verse is verse 13. As though they pass through perils guarded by a hero, even those weighed down with dreadful wickedness will instantly be freed through having bodhicitta. Why do those who fear their sins not have recourse to it?
사명하디 파세바 마세바 다좀바 세바 아니 기두기 엔제바 아니 디시지로 고랑에서 못하지 마세요. 오야 어디도 제일이나 다데 디버신도 메세바 생긴 다도 빼서 코로나 커도 어디기도 송자 디버신도 빼세가고 다디기 제외는 디버도 차단도 다 가고 거기가 참여가 서서 디버 다야 두줄빼 가장 연구 이유가 있어. 아니 디진 참여가 서로 된적이 디버 대양사 아니 다 그거 이유나 아니 장주선을 때문에 땡겨를 해서지.
as though they passed through perils guarded by a hero, even those weighed down with dreadful wickedness. Dreadful wickedness here may be most directly explained as the 5 heinous crimes. Dreadful wickedness is responsibility for any of the 5 heinous crimes. The 5 heinous crimes are murdering one's mother, murdering one's father, murdering an arhat, dividing the sangha, and drawing blood from a tathagata with malicious intent. Any of these, the time required to purify such a grave misdeed is, the time required is of great duration. And so these are known as the 5 heinous crimes. If one is intent on purifying these misdeeds, the method best for doing so is bodhicitta.
뭐야, 나도 배다 되는 그 같이 자는 시험에 있는 한데 다 수수되네. 지금 유지를 바르고 얘나 년가다 직과 친구 여봐 년가 친구 여봐 그런 되는지 발 싸고 나가로 되는 조고 여봐 있나 아니 콜라 가리고르스나 아니 콜라 로바 야고 배미 또블 때마 딜라베 천다 조배 야고 기지와 수 선쟁이 되게 직과 있나 직과를 격투야 아니 자자 구마다 자박이 직과에는 격투야기 되게 유효기 아니 지금 로바지를 때네 아니 로바로 왔어 아니 되게 로바 야고지를 때네 로이나 아니 가지고도 년가 매워서 팔렙 투기로 왔어 아니 되게 마데바이나 아니 야만은 선쟁이 좀 봐도 세 사실을 야만은 자다 직과들이 좀 그 배마도 같이 되게 속으로 와 되나시 딱 되게 직과들을 들어볼 채와라 아니 라는 미 똑도 때문에 로고에 되게 미 보이지가 때문에 왔어 때는 들어보러 되나시 말한도 딱 토액이 직과 친구들이 동행 대단히 바 들어볼 채와라 아니 보우 쇠도 아니 자주 선거 때문에 들어보이나 아니 직원을 들어도 그래서 어디 도시하고 그래서 그러지.
Now, if one were traveling and had to travel through dangerous terrain, wild terrain, terrain with robbers and other sorts of threats, one would want to travel with a guide, a friend, someone strong and armed and able to protect from robbers, from wild animals, from whatever sorts of dangers one would face along the way. And if one had such a friend, an armed and strong companion to travel with, then one could arrive safely at their destination. Now, similarly, if we are responsible for grave misdeeds and our samsaric responsibility for grave misdeeds is very fearsome, then we too would best rely upon some sort of companion, some sort of heroic companion able to deliver us through all of those dangers so that we might escape. And that companion and that heroic companion is bodhicitta.
어쩌지 제가 자주 쓰는데 아니 자주 쓰는 인부 똥대래서 인부 방자 수수를 가지고다 직방자 점발라 인부 똥다 때마 근데 이들마다 자주 쓰는 점마트베게는 이거 매버레스 이거 매버스다 자주 쓰는 수수를 자주 쓰는 돌에 내지 공부 제바이나 아니 라는 레사를 내또 친구 아니 배 가지 친구 단 이 사보이나야 아니 자주 쌤이 받좀 맞도록 디바 매버스 순거래서
Bodhicitta has this extraordinary power. It has the extraordinary power to overcome all that is to be abandoned. Any sort and all sorts of non-virtue, all that must be overcome, bodhicitta and bodhicitta alone is able to overcome. No matter the misdeeds, no matter how grave and how serious, there is no grave, serious misdeed that bodhicitta is incapable of or unable to overcome. There is no such misdeed. And the scriptural support for this comes from the sutra requested by Wisdom Ocean. And next, and following is the metaphor illustrating the effortless way in which Bodhisattva is able to overcome grave misdeeds. And in verse 14, there are 2 lines describing this. Just as by the fire that will destroy the world, great sins are surely and at once consumed by it.
that's Janju Semgi, any Janju Sem Jang, any Dipa Tava Chebayina, any Tugi Tamas, the Madame, the Mulling Dipa Jig to do, any Tamala, make it equal, it is one, make it equal again, the Mulling Chasampa Sig, she knew that. She knew that Nang Senjay Kangapa Jiba, Chetuya, Niva, Dinashi, and the Janju Sem Digi. And the Karchas and Anzo is sorry to make it. You can Tamji Jumper Chetu spend your response.
When we train in bodhicitta, bodhicitta is capable of purifying all non-virtues, all misdeeds, the karma of all sorts of misdeeds. It is likened to the incineration of the universe that occurs in the kalpa of disintegration. And during that kalpa of disintegration, a great fire incinerates the universe and the occupants of the universe. And in just the same way, bodhicitta is able to incinerate, thoroughly eliminate all negative karma from previous misdeeds.
다 간다 되게 아니 장주 세기 배 여바데 아니 지난 농다 리포트 통에 두려요 농다 리포트 두려요 그래서 근데 이마이나 다 되게 쿵도 너 가와된 거였나 아니 표현이 돌래 그전 저와 전부 보고 아니 이 계부 총무부 분노상 아니 고랑이 다 장주 세기 표현 순도 아니 어떻게 숨어를 숨었지.
Now there is scriptural support for these benefits attributed to bodhicitta, and these benefits can also be understood through reason. But the sutra that is scriptural support here is found in the Sutra Vatika.
장보로도 되면 뭐 선시했어. 디 비법도 뭐도 장보 저와 장보 공부에 안도도 되고 총회지 분노상 아니 두기디 자동 숨어졌어.
그러더니 이제 장보 공부에 아니 마르 로단데
장보 노상 시버서.
노르산아. 아니 로단데바디 장고 로단데바.
장보로도 되면 데베스 안 노스 다가데 루주 자산 유유바 아니 저와 장보 공부에 아니 술 시버서 아니 정부의 본노상스기 저와 디다나마도 상주 송세도 상주기 넌 송세죠 부디 미디면 노상스 그런 소원을 해서
The scriptural support here is found in the sutra that was taught by Maitreya to the son of the businessman who was known as Subudhu, I believe.
야, 제가 이제 다들 배추지 거네. 아니 자주스기 표현시해 봤어야지. 아니 벌써 내리신 길에 안 들어가도 대시하는 처치는 처치 나로 나왔어.
So with that, the 6 metaphors illustrating the benefits of bodhicitta have been concluded, and that leaves us with some time for question and answer. So we can use that time for Q&A if we'd like. Any questions?
I'm curious about why we think that bodhicitta is endless. Is endless.
What's that again?
That it is endless. That bodhicitta is endless. Talking about the plantain metaphor. And I was just curious about the connection of selflessness and bodhicitta, and whether he can just talk a little bit about that, whether that is the relation. If a characteristic of bodhicitta is that selflessness that is ultimately wisdom.
그래서 계시기 아니 정생기 태양 걸려야 숨도 잠발라 다니 추신 빼던 자르네 전축 기sem기 제부디 아니 세바 메바 아니 옌스 송송아 다 세바 메바다 윤링고 네바 그라 세바 메바 윤링고 네바 케추 텐소 케추 텐소 다메 토페 셰럽단 자와 요르베 다메 토페 셰럽 요르 다메 토페 셰럽단 제외 토네 아니 장심기 제부 세바 메바 숭 요르베
예, 다들 지난 장주선들은 전남 장주의 셈, 군소 장주의 셈, 이제 아우선, 이제선, 다 있는 단단 먼저 제시 계획이 소 군소 장주의 셈, 다 비춰져라. 어디기 표현식이 어레스. 이내 전남 장주의 셈라 제시디 yap초를 해서 이내 그 배제를 가도 돼야지 군소 장주의 셈에 계획이 어레스. 정말서.
이내디 공기 계시기 아니 계신 기회에 터냈대 다음에 또 베셔럽단 장축기 셈기 자와기 걸어야 소르남 양송송 이내 아서 이내 다 말해 To begin with, bodhicitta is maybe of 2 kinds, conventional bodhicitta and ultimate bodhicitta. And in this context now, it is conventional bodhicitta, the method aspect that we are primarily concerned with. But ultimate bodhicitta, when it is our focus, may be explained in just the way that you have mentioned as related to the wisdom realizing things. Yeah, in that 다음에 또 베셔럽단 장축기 셈기 대니기 자와 이걸라 스무르지
다 하나 두스다 다 만도 산계발라 꾸니 토브로와 산계발라 산주지 꾸다 신주고 그래서 꾸니 토브로와 어이 토발라 다 뒤주면 육거리도나 주초니사오스 제부 꾸니 토발라 주초니사 초인데 가래 이식이 소강 소남 초니제 다 소남 초디 추구주가 고세 어서 맞지 수구주가 고세 소남 초도 이 수구주지 고세 이식이 초도 이 추구주지 고세 어서 딱 유니디 가래 소남 초다 이식이 초 소남 초 다도디 군조 장주 선세 이식 속에 초도 주거든 한 전단 자주 무슨 그래서 다 전단 자주 무슨다
아니 고조 전주선 이 되게 아니 교체는 저국이 타고 그랬어. 지금 딱 분위기 나눠 대화 가래스나 지나 분위기 나눠 시도 유명하게 좀 말해. 시도 유명하게 분위기 손을 쏘서 타고 차와. 이식 쏘서는 싫어 차더라고. 예. 제가 이식 쏘서 손 안 되고 찍습니다.
In the achievement of bodhicitta, excuse me, in the accomplishment of Buddhahood, the achievement of Buddhahood, one achieves Buddhahood in the two bodies, the two Buddha bodies, the two bodies. They are the Buddha body of others' welfare and the Buddha body of one's own welfare. Each of these two forms of body have two respective causes. So these are the two results with the two respective causes. The cause leading to the body of the well-being of others is the accumulation of merit. The cause leading to the body of the of one's own end or one's own well-being is the accumulation of merit. So the accumulation of merit leads to the sambhogakaya that brings about the well-being of others. The accumulation of wisdom leads to the wisdom body, the Buddha body of one's own well-being. Within, and these two are, within that wisdom, within the collection of wisdom that causes the achievement of the body of one's own well-being, there are two forms of bodhicitta to consider: ordinary bodhicitta and ultimate bodhicitta.
그래서 딱 간다도 코에 가도 코방으로 코방해야 돼. 거리방으로는 전남 전주 쌤들이 반대를 하고 돈이 또 배셔라 저러와. 돈이 또 배셔라디 어떤 신지 제기 유나 신지에 떨어져야 가래. 전남 전주 쌤들이 하고 그것이 시절을 사들어와. 딸이 유연의 신바가자 딸이 찍고 유연의 신제기 말와. 딸 죄가 제약이 버릇을 내가 능이도 수요잖아. 강사 신주의가 나와도 강사 수요로와. 니가래 그 구조 전주선들 하고 구조 전주선 되게 아니 고탑 되게 차도 숙청부 차도 아니 그 변함처럼 로바체네 아니 신의 제기를 하고 그래서 제가 탑 차도 숙매나 신제 두고 말은 시라비 차도면 신제 두고 면도 군인이가 송대체는 신의 제고 어디다시 거기에 싸워 제보나 아니 구조 전주선 더 니가 바로 맞으면 아니 거기서 제 두고 말했어.
In the abandonment of cyclic existence, that which abandons cyclic existence is the wisdom realizing emptiness, which is like an axe that cuts the root of cyclic existence. Now, following the metaphor, when we take an axe to the root of any tree, the axe doesn't itself strike the root of the tree unassisted. There has to be a body, an agent who swings the axe to cut the root. And so that, by metaphor, that assistance is the method aspect, which is conventional bodhicitta. Conventional bodhicitta is the wisdom aspect that assists in the blow of the axe that is ultimate bodhicitta, which ultimately cuts the root of cyclic existence. Did that bring anything? Oh, that okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Joshua. Thank you so much. I just want to make sure I have the 6 metaphors. Pardon me, so categorical. The first one was the metaphor of the alchemist. Second one was the metaphor of the ocean, the boat and the captain going to the far shore. The third metaphor was that of the planted fruit, which only gives one harvest. And the fourth one was dispelling fear. When traveling through dangerous terrain, you need a strong companion. And the fifth one was overcoming grave misdeeds. Bodhisattva incinerates misdeeds, like the fire, the culprit of disintegration. So I didn't see one.
Or the pay drop your pay drop the also any jinso tangian the drop in ang nga ba to ni ma song Dampati and member choke to Guru pay. Neighbor day and Neka Sing Rintang Chiwe. Then the somebody or the Jebu Mising Pay. Then Shiba the Jipachimbo the Kyo Mube. Nabadi. Dig what second neighbor John Pepe. Then drop the Drupadi Nemason.
That's what the Chalusen Pay bottom of the best. Pay bottom of the best in the Redwa. Chalusen the Chalu Sim dealer, any Lozawa, not paying Changameva, Tameva, Mabu or D, any call the Changolo the Dembati. Chamboko, any no family shape of paid and assume you are study. Pay bottom of the bed is done. Several other men this teacher.
And the sixth is the metaphor illustrating the immeasurable, uncountable benefits of bodhicitta, and that is found in the final two lines of stanza 14. Its benefits are thus unbounded, and the wise and loving Lord explained, as the wise and loving Lord explained to Sudana. That's the sixth there.
The parent Changameva Jayarwa, or it's not the Yobati, any that's to such any Java Chambogo, any and the Sanju Melon Sumsa Dina, any what the parent Mosumber, or did the Yamdo your response. Sanju Melon Sings, what in Nasum the dinner that parent you soon. Sanju said the parent Mosumber.
Now there are many places where bodhicitta's benefits are described, countless various scriptures, including the Flower Array Sutra and the Sutra from the Wise and Loving Lord addressed to Sudana. In the King of Aspiration Sutra, the benefits of bodhicitta are also described. So the support for all of these benefits of bodhicitta have their scriptural basis.
자주심 표현인데 어떤 때는 아주 주주 집어라고 주주들은 자주심 정당이 꼴로 자주심들이 장고를 자주심 표현들이 디자인들이 여러 송을 봐. 답하게 상주나는 아니 자주심이 아니 거기 딱 도기 좀 자주심 송당지로 봐. 어디 보러 상주만 오는 거. 주주들 상주만 오는 되었다고 찾아.
네, 어려요. 네, 전주대 안에 상주만 기자바.
자와도 전주대 저도 찾아.
전주대 저.
제발.
the wise and loving Lord explained to Sudana. What he explained to Sudana is the present King of Aspiration Sutra. That King of Aspiration Sutra is what is referred to here as that which wise and loving Lord explained to Sudana. The King of Aspiration Sutra is filled with descriptions of the benefits of bodhicitta. It's all about the benefits of bodhicitta. And in a way, the Bodhicharya Avatara, the guide to the way of the Bodhisattva, is a commentary on the King of Aspiration Sutra, which is filled with these descriptions of the benefits of bodhicitta.
거의 민거를 찍어라 찍어서 상고죄 봤어요. 찍어 제세 전주스를 죄발로. 제세 전주스를 죄봐서 상고죄발을 놓으셔야 말. 상고죄발은 제세 전주스를 죄가 되나요? 그러다 보니 민기 cik가 처럼도 된다 찍고 그냥 차야 돼요.
The King of Aspiration prayers is also known as the Sutra of Excellent Conduct. And in the title, the Bodhicharya Avatara, the way of the Bodhisattva, the excellent conduct, that is bodhicitta, is not set aside for focus. Rather, it is folded into the text as a whole, the way of the Bodhisattva. But the title of the King of Aspiration prayers, another title to know, to refer to that same sutra, is the Sutra of Excellent Conduct. So they are just different titles or different wording of the same idea. So there may be some other questions.
Thank you, Vishal. My question is that in practicing both, in practicing virtues, and especially the virtues which are conjoined with bodhicitta, so if you do something which is virtuous, is there anything that can undo that virtuous action, such as if you feel pride in doing that, or if you tell everybody, oh, I did this good thing today, I helped poor people. So does that negate it?
장축기 심당 심베 개와 drup네 다니 개와디 메바 조켄 메바 조야 아유메 다페나니 개와 drup네 나기야 깨나 나니 개와 데네 아니 제바 yensam네 나기야 깨나 데야니 개와디 아니 메바조 아니 조그르베 야메나 다니 미신다라 아니 몸속이야네 아니 미우보 덴데라 아니 로봇 덴데 제바 yen스 라네 and mission the line it was so gerne gerne die gewte eine mebezo yorebe 진짜
되게 겨워 충분도 여러 배나 당하고 근데 겨워 당하고 배나 되게 열다 겨워를 시켜놓고 갑대로 배나 되샤기 배나 가지고 그 진백이 가대들라 세나 여러와 디나시 그 추름기 가대들라 추지 여러와 어디를 수수수기 개화로 때서 점면들이 망부 열다 때는 콘 뒤로 왔다 참배기 개화기 제와지기 점면들라 콘도 여러와 어디나시 콘 개화 지단하고 개화 사회들이 아니 대부 대화 진마투에 매우 손얘기 그런 이모들 여러와 이모들 여러에서 때는 또 두쇼디 가서 빼로 자원 두쇼디 콘도 들어가서 기와 매번 손이 또 소리 콘도 들어가서 shedan kondo yorwa kondo digi 먼저 그 사교디 개와디 내가 수고라고서 제가 딱 먼저 가르치고 그래서 개와디 사교디 양면은 거기 전단 장주에서 군도 장주 쓴게 심바로 중앙이나 아니 거기 공도기 내가 좀 두고 말했어. 이전에 장주 쓴게 심바로 적으로 써야 돼. 공도 개와디만 좀 어서 같이 중을 따라 같이 매워 차이로 와. 어떻게 맞아야 되나 아니 자주 생각 심하고 자주 생각나 가려는 뭐는 줄라고 뭐 그래서도 뭐 심으로 가서 다시 가서 주택버지 자주나 루어나시 수수 제배 개와디 아니 자주 생각 심셔도 자주나 루어나시 차고 세번에 차도 좀 못도 그래서 그 자주 생각 심어 맞으나 아니 거기 차도 콘도 좀 내가 소시하고 간제 그 개와디 되고 대화시켜로 어디 때 맞고 써야 돼. 좀 왔어 나와. 어디든.
Now, for any instance of virtue, there is its opponent force in a mental affliction. So for each virtue, there is a mental affliction that could, well, eliminate that virtue or cancel out the virtue done. So each virtuous inclination has its respective mental affliction opposed to it. For instance, one may practice generosity, but then one may be possessive. And in that way, possessiveness would cancel the generosity. Or one may maintain ethical discipline, but then have a lapse of ethical discipline. Or one may practice loving kindness and then have a fit of anger. So for every instance of virtue, there is its alternate mental affliction. And the very worst form, the very worst of mental afflictions is anger. And it's anger that is able to destroy roots of virtue. And it's for that reason, because of these mental afflictions and particularly anger, that virtuous action must be sealed and preserved through conjoining the action with bodhicitta. Conjoining an action with bodhicitta prevents mental afflictions from canceling or eliminating that root of virtue. So that's the purpose of the dedication. When one dedicates one's actions, one is sealing the virtue of those actions, as though one were putting a drop of virtue in a vast ocean, so it were preserved, and thereby making that single drop inexhaustible. So conjoining virtue with bodhicitta prevents anger from destroying that root of virtue. And virtue gives rise to satisfaction. When something prevents that virtue from ripening into satisfaction, that is the very force that bodhicitta prevents from preventing satisfaction from coming from virtue.
지난 저는 때와도 선이기 원래 was 야나 저표 야나 등 시기로와 그래서만이 야나 등 편식이 좀만 임보다 야나도 벌반이 돼 얼마 세 류니가 걸려 그래서.
Now, a description of the full 7-branch offering and all that entails, all of its benefits, etc., will be taken up as a topic in the 2nd chapter.
When I listen to the 6 metaphors, it seems that there might be, well, I have a practical approach. It seems like there might be practices that you can carry with each one of the metaphors. And I heard 3 practices that seem kind of daily engagement. One of them is offering whatever beneficial action to the awakening of all beings and myself. Another is to wish for the thing to ripen in the body or provide time for mindfulness to let it ripen in the moment. And the third would be to take refuge in strong protective beings. But there may also be other ones, or maybe I'm mishearing. There's 3 practical things that I might be able to do in my daily life.
Can you rephrase the second one? What is that? The ripening? Is it?
I think the first thing you said was something to do with like letting the thing ripen in this body. If you've had negative karma, allow it to ripen in this body.
Oh yeah. Then Pedro, 아니 숭네 이 고야라 다 카요라요기 냠는 체당 만라오 숭삼 근데 아니 로라 샤르송 라 카요라요기 냠는 체당 배나 아니 체카르데스나 다 아니 게와 줍네 니 게와 사교티 아니 심신 탐체 상계기 고판 토비라 ngoagan chikche dene ani migewele ngomane ani sakyo migewele khangroma ani mitse dilaya luten dila ani membarsho sambe ani prisa ani munsembe samode chikche dene ti kyabne yangda pala tene ti kyabsu draw sumdere tatene nge goyate jigiduge penade pedro shirshane ani kayola yogi nimata par nyamnen chetan tende ani goaleni yorbe
ti ona ta kana handar manzoge ti peti shaya de kasin chanju sim konage pyesh ta kande chanju sim nyamden lemba ina ani kepsan kare yore sta danda todo dishi gorwa kepsan ko chanju sim nyamden lene ani ngodo ta pena ngodo 총 얘기 요에나 총 얘기는 kepsan kar도 오늘 수삼 단계로와 대나시 chanju sim nyamden lemba ina ani kare yore ta 중요한 대화 kare yore kepsan kare yore 스고로와 제가 단대 전화는 나와나 진짜 단대 뒤 순간이 수수가 다 삼바다 틈바는 배짱마다냐레스 이 세상 가르는 배나 다 장주고 쌤이 냐면 지도 담바 아니 가다 포티 신이 동해라 당 삼로 망한 단계로 와 삼로 망한 단계 여바 인도 아니 다 간다 수수고 동해디 냐야디 다 빼줘지마도 다다 도도 딱 간다 신이 동해 세 두고 있는 랑게 동해 쉐라 다 두고 어서 그러나 내게 나 동해 매버쇼 나치고 용하셔 랍 삼로 땅아 있나 삼로 디기 수수 동해 매버 차트 그래서 지라깔에 가고 그랬어 다 시기 동해 세가 삼로 땅아 있나 아니 시기 동해서 삼로 디기 뉴베게 향이 동해 때 숑투에 뉴바 요랬어 제산 계란 저 담고들 디기 저 도왔어 그래서 아니 이거들은 디바 거기 다 수바다 짬내 안다 세서 짬내 안다 세디 데버스타 가서 가다는 거랑 저기 거기 추라 줘야라야 너무 추 뭐셔야 추 그랑 간데스 깨고 유메 고쳐야 아니 깨 세제 아니 추 제가 있는 고 추디 니버치 부차그랬어 이들아 나중에 디바 가래
다드니 니버디 다데 세딜라 아니 뉴덴 딜라 아니 ngomasakyogi le migeweledi membersho sambe samlodi
어디 지단디 디기 가려스나 따디 케벤 전부 열었어 배나마도 수수 나데 수수 다다지 룰을 나자도지 삼로 땅데는 나자디 나나도 샘리 제대나 그 나자도 총 두고 말다 하다 디기 샘 남도 디기 나자디 너너걸 봐도 팽기면도 왔어 티나시다 니 나서 디기 아니 시에 나자데 나니 간다 고쳐고 쇼스데 뭐는 잡샤나 아니 그 서버도 전주 샘 직제 아니 동해 망고 다 수수 사베 레 망고 다 받는데 표현 네가 친구 여봐 아니 로종 쿵나 빼망고 열에서 로종 게 아니 로종 시에도 잡아 아니 내 공부를 어디 시에를 해서 그래서
Now that's exactly it. That's exactly it. These are descriptions of bodhicitta and an examination of the sorts of benefits that bodhicitta necessarily entails. It's the due diligence that one performs when they're getting into any business, looking to see whether there may be any profits or profits lost somehow. And as we imagine bodhicitta, we look to see what sort of benefits follow from bodhicitta. And then each, in an authentic, sincere way, applies an understanding of the benefits of bodhicitta to the motivation to practice bodhicitta. And then it is just as you said, that one offers one's virtues, the force of one's virtues, to the achievement of Buddhahood by all sentient beings. And when one does that, one is able to naturally achieve one's own well-being through dedication to the well-being of others. If one is in pain and one is preoccupied by their own pain and wishes, may I just become free from this pain, the narrowness of one's concerns frustrates one's own ability to experience any relief. But when one is concerned with well-being of others, then naturally one finds relief from one's own discomforts. So that is for the first one. And then you described well the second, and then for the third too, when one draws activities into the Dharma, identifies how one creates practices that are consistent with the Dharma, examining and finding exemplary refuge in other beings is essential too. But now returning to the second again, which was your description of having non-virtue, illness, etc., ripen in the present body, in the present life. Again, if one dwells on one's own sickness and feels very unfortunate, wishes to personally be free from sickness, wallows in discomfort, that will all just increase one's own discomfort. But if at that moment of hardship, one says, at this time, may this be the ripening of the hardship that others would otherwise experience, that brings a relief from that. And so this is a bodhisattva practice. This is the very training of a bodhisattva. And it is these sorts of explanations that form the core and the source material for descriptions of mind training.
Thank you so much for your
아니 개바가 뭐 깨지 마무시기도 하세요. 개바다 개체다. 아니 깨지마다 어딘데 투즈도 난 걸어. 아니 나도 도저히 지기 있어든지. 안디 제가 아니 나도 직선이 자주성이 변시도 좀 봐. 아니 투즈기 보내 아니 밖에 따라서 전부 땅땅한 거 쉬죠. 이게 방탄으로 시가도 좀 고쳐야 이거구나. 아니 제주 대시 아마고 대시 망고다. 팬도요 서레스 제가 개바다 개진다 아니 그게 개직마다 아니 뒤즈도 나도 걸어 추가 간들이면 너 저시직 노제직 제마들의 인수.
Next Thursday, during our class on the Bodhicharya Avatara, we will focus on time and duration, momentariness and impermanence. It'll be a focused class on time period, on duration. There are kalpas and mahakalpas and in uncountable eons, periods of great duration, and a familiarity with momentariness, with the various ways of thinking about duration and time will lend itself to an immediate comprehension and absorption of bodhicitta and its benefits, so that when we look to these verses describing the benefits of bodhicitta, familiarity with time, with the time available, the time for the Dharma, etc., will register. So we're going to, next week, we're going to focus on time and concentrate on that.
걸 섬로 땅에 그 걸 아니면 뒤죽 도단데 야고 마시나 치워 메다버 되게 메다버 도단데 아니 섬로 차르하고 쉬우지 알았어 안 뒤죽 도단데 하고는 아니 셰베기 도단다 메다버 도단 걸 망골 섬로 땅 팽기선 되게 도수.
When we consider impermanence and imminent death, when we look at those contemplations of impermanence and imminent death, those are more likely to register in a persuasive way with some greater comprehension of what we mean by time. So that's the idea.
아니 수수가 메드베 강엔다 스마기바다 메드베 카레는 시와다 근데 나랑도 지기 담불링이 내다한테 야로 둬야다 아니 지 나랑도 강가 제와 새로 던지도 아니 배 산중선을 로정에 요한테 되게 토로 뭐는 제가 지스 아니 네 남은 뭐는 되게 아니 모아지기 이소시.
And now we will close with our prayers, dedicating the virtue of contemplation of the benefits of bodhicitta to the elimination of all that is dissatisfactory for us personally, and the bringing about of all that is generally beneficial for others, and for the success of the Bodhisattva trainings generally. And so with this in mind, we will recite our closing prayer, the Lamrim prayer. On page 12.
Tembe ma kusan amji jodine lube jena neche rage chichen tobe namje ne shura tsebe trabe kabe lue ije mwa seje ne jawe temba yore zenju temba rejen choje ma jaba jabya nyamba jube chode Nije chembu yirawa chewa yo pende teje sewa chema seje yawe miju chende le ju sanju namye lembe tade namye yila pende jen yawe zewa rendu chonju Lasa rube tuge druje jen tero Mida meme Sera kundu jawe nawa Nanda dewa nakyu Anze tiba jola juju Suje rola zunga de Ude namye tado roje Jaji jazu jugu jaguji.
From my two collections, vast as space that I have amassed, from working with effort at this practice for a great length of time, may I become the chief living Buddha for all those who live mindful and vice. Even if I do not reach this state, may I be held in your loving compassion for all my lives, may I find the best of the paths of the complete teachings, and may I please all of us by practicing. Using skillful means drawn by the strong force of compassion, may I clear the darkness from the minds of all beings with the points of the path as I have discerned them. May I uphold Buddha's teachings for a very long time. With my heart going out with great compassion, In whatever direction the most precious teachings spread or once spread have declined, may I offer this treasure of happiness to aid all sentient beings. May the minds of those who wish for liberation be granted bounteous peace, and the Buddha's deeds be nourished for a long time by following the complete graduated path to the light and the virtuous conduct of the Buddhas and their sons. May all human beings conducive for practicing self never be burdened, never be lives, and the purest and whenever someone makes effort to act in accordance with the tenfold Mahayana virtuous practices, may he always be assisted by the mighty ones, and may oceans of prosperity spread everywhere.
Dagi jinye sabe yewa tena drowa kunam cheva jiru san raba tempe nipo rendo se Tare rave gove shingande tena dewa malu jume Chere sema benze nyaso ye shabe side marzo tenyo je jambe pao chintara kemba kulu sampo deya Ela kunye jesu zalo je jewa teta tamje rato Tuso shebe jawa tamje je moa kama chodo mama Aji jive zawa dikuraja sambo chuji rabu mo Chanju senjo memo je maje pana Jewa nyamba meba pone modu bewa sho
I dedicate whatever virtues I have ever collected for the benefit of the teachings and of sentient beings, and in particular for the essential teachings of Venerable Losam Japa the Shantideva. In the land and circumference of mountains, you are the source of all happiness and good, all powerful in His tins and gyatso. Please remain until cyclic existence is ended. Just as the brave Manjushri and Samantabhadra realize things as they are, also I dedicate all these merits in the best way, that I may follow their perfect example. I dedicate all these roots of virtue with the dedication praised as the best by the victorious thus gone ones of the three times, so that I might perform the noble Bodhisattva deeds. May the supreme Bodhisattva that has not arisen arise and grow, and may that which has arisen not diminish, but increase more and more. Thank you. Thank you very much.